So you pretty much are hackers.
Within 30 minutes, we were in their accounting platform, sending screenshots to them of their SQL database.
Wow. How often are you able to break through in that scenario?
There's only one company that we weren't able to break through.
Mark Tashenko was the founder of Edgfi, a premier cybersecurity firm serving banks, credit unions, and other organizations. Today, he shares his origin story and reveals the real-world tactics used by ethical hackers. So you're saying that all these people who are vibe coding this software that has no security whatsoever.
I like to vibe code. I'm a culprit of that too. AI is going to cause a lot more vulnerabilities.
He also breaks down the common security mistakes most people make online and shares practical advice to protect yourself. What do you think most people get wrong about security and things that they could personally do?
Oversharing on social media. Philosophically, it's wrong to be secure because if you're secure, you're not vulnerable. And when you're not vulnerable, you're not building relationships.
People are giving away a lot of information, asking ChatGPT about their personal situation. Is that safe?
I wouldn't say it.
What's up, guys? Quick break over here. 80% of you guys listening are not subscribers. The more subscribers we get, the bigger and better we can make the show.
And if you've been getting value from Matchbox, please hit that subscribe button below. For you, it's just a click. For us, it means a lot.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Welcome to the show. It's great to have you. I've known you for roughly 10 years. If you're not sure, but I think it's close to 10.
Yeah, could be 2016, maybe. Well, I'm honored to be here.
You're a fascinating person, a family man. You love God, and you have a company that's been around for 15 plus years, right?
Yeah.
And it's called Edgfi, cybersecurity company. I think you're the only person I know in that space.
When did you start the company? Let's start there.
I started the company in 2006, September of 2006. So it'll be 20 years next year.
And what was your background before you started the company?
I had a few other small businesses that I've been doing before.
Were they tech related or?
Tech related.
Tech related.
So I started off when I was 12. My parents bought their first house as an immigrant.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
We had the yard made, just lawn put together and just basic landscape. And I was 12 and I was always fascinated with automated sprinkler systems. So one day I convinced my mom that, hey, can I put in an automated sprinkler system? And she laughs at this story often because it was raining and pouring for 4 months and I was digging trenches. But what I did while I was digging these trenches to put in an automated sprinkler system, I came across networking. And at the time, this was mid-90s, internet was 28K. Very, very slow. You have to dial up. You consume the phone line and nobody else can make phone calls, pre-cell phones. But what I realized is if I can get a high-speed internet connection at home, I could pay for it by sharing that connection with my neighbors. And the way I did it is at Goodwill, I discovered network cards. And I was fascinated by that. So I built cables from neighbor to neighbor to neighbor and provided them internet, mostly other kids, to play video games. And the internet was like 90K instead of 28K.
And when you say 90K, a lot of people are thinking like $90,000. You're not talking dollars, you're talking
kilobit speed.
Kilobits.
So let's say 1/1000th or 1/10,000th of what we have right now.
Super slow.
Very slow.
And how did you know what to do or to even have that idea, right? Because like you didn't have YouTube back then to just like learn about all this stuff. How did you learn about networking to even know it was a thing that you could connect and share internet with your neighbors?
For me, what really fascinated me was the connection. It was what's called 10 base T. So you know how cable TV has that little round connector? So very similar networking through coax. And it was the connector that caught my attention. I was like, what is this fascinating connector when I saw the device? Eventually, Comcast did this at scale. For me, it was like within, I think, 500 feet that I could only do it. But Comcast did essentially the same thing at scale. But that was not until 1999, 2000. So yeah, that's where my fascination with technology happened. And I still have a very strong passion for networking.
And when did you get your first computer? I feel like that's a very defining moment for people who are really into tech.
Probably 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
Yeah.
And what would you do mostly? Were you
And it was
playing
a free
games?
computer from a garage sale junk bin.
Oh, wow.
It was a Tandy TR-80.
I don't even know what that is.
My first computer was also from a garage bin.
I tried to buy a Tandy TR-80 on eBay last year, I think, and it was like $800.
Jeez.
It's like, nah, not worth it yet. I might
that's
find one at a garage sale.
It's cool to have one of those. My first computer was a Russian computer,
Really?
Soviet Union computer, Electronica, something like that.
Something that they coded Tetris on.
Yeah, something like one of those computers. It had those big diskettes that are
Floppy
flexible.
disk, yeah.
Yeah, floppy disks. And you put in two. One is the operating system. One is whatever software, because it didn't have internal drive. It didn't have a hard drive. It didn't have so you put one as the operating system, and then if you have something else, you have a second slot where you stick for games.
Good old days.
We don't deal with that anymore.
Simpler life.
Mm-hmm.
Simpler life.
So you've always been in technology, and then you eventually launch a cybersecurity firm. Tell us a little bit about Edgfi. What does it do? Is it B2B, B2C? What are your customer base? What does that look like? And what's the actual service that you provide?
Edgfi didn't start as a cybersecurity company. We started as a networking company years ago. Today, Edgfi provides cybersecurity for banks, credit unions. We have CPG customers, consumer product goods, larger brands. We have local municipalities, public services companies, organizations that we provide a lot of security penetration testing. So really looking at the whole environment holistically. Like this week, one of our customers sent me an email and said, "Hey, Mark, we're celebrating that we had the best security score in history, and we're taking our team to lunch. Can you join us?" So I went and had lunch with them. And it's fascinating to hear the story from leadership saying that how what we've done and our approach and the way we looked at their environment wasn't about selling more technology. It was actually selling less technology. And I know it's not good for business to sell less, but it's good for the customer. In their case, we were able to achieve the best security scores by a third party and reduce their security budget by 50%. So, and they're a big local company.
What is the average security budget? I've never heard that phrase before.
So your IT budget is about 4%
of the total operating budget for an enterprise.
Total revenue, 4 to 7% goes to IT, and then about now 25 to 30% of that goes to security.
So roughly 1% of companies'
revenue.
Wow, that's big.
Interesting. How do you acquire customers? I mean, I always thought when I knew we were gonna have you on the show, I wanted to ask, like, if you're in cybersecurity, your knowledge is so much greater than the customers you serve because they literally don't know how to do this. It's almost like you could hack them and tell them, "Hey, I hacked you. Here's a solution." Prove to them that like their whole system sucks, just to get their attention.
Some people do that. They actually hack corporate companies and they say, "Hey,"
it's called ransomware.
Yeah.
I had a few ransomware incidents in two, to be exact. It's unethical. I think it would be better to go to the customer and say, "Hey, if we do compromise your systems, will you pay us X?" I think that's more ethical.
No, how as a client?
Yeah. As a client, we do penetration services. So they pay us upfront to test their defenses.
How often are you able to like break through in that scenario?
There's only one company that we weren't able to break through. Not a big company, and their IT budget and security budget is not huge, but the two people that are on the team are phenomenal.
Interesting.
That's the only company that we weren't able to break through.
It's super interesting, the business you're in, because all businesses use software nowadays. And if you do anything digital, that opens you up to risk of accounts getting hacked and losing control, information being leaked, and depending on the industry you're in and the accounts you have, it could mean money gets drained from accounts. It could mean ad accounts get turned on or off. It could mean that personal information is shared. What should the common person think about when they're thinking about security? Because most people don't have like an enterprise level need for security. What do you think most people don't like get wrong about security and things that they could personally do?
Oversharing on social media.
Such as what?
Such as anything. Pictures of their desk, pictures of their workspaces.
Why would that be a risk?
We were retained 5 or 6 years ago by a large local institution that we all know here. And their objective was, we're worried about our ERP platform, which houses, I'd say, most of the residents in Clark County. And they're like, we're worried that this is a risk. Their IT team is saying that it's not a risk, but the board thinks that there is a risk. So they retain us, and within 30 minutes, we were in their accounting platform, sending screenshots to them of their SQL database.
Wow.
The way we did that is we looked at everyone who worked at the organization for the last 5 years. We downloaded that information, and then we cross-referenced that information with any public leaked data like Facebook. In this case, it was Facebook that had those users who were leaked. The password that they used on Facebook is the same password they used for the company.
Interesting.
So that was year 1. Year 2, same exercise. Can we get into the accounting platforms?
Same company.
Same company. They do it annually. They fixed that vulnerability by forcing people to use different passwords, rotating passwords every 90 days, pretty common practice. Once they fixed that, they solved that problem. But they had a new problem. They were using IRC inside of the organization. It's kind of like Slack, but an internal. And they thought it was secure because it was on the inside of the firewall. When we were able to compromise IRC, we sent a message to all of the users saying, hey, I'm new here, and I got this document from my boss, Laura, or whoever. It's a big company, so they don't know everybody. Can you open this document for me? It came from a trusted source, an internal tool that they all trusted, and it appeared as if it was a legitimate new employee seeking help. Everyone's like, yeah, we'd love to help you. I think we had like 15% open rate.
15?
Wow.
Yeah. Open rate of a malicious document, Word document. And we got in. Again, I think the whole process took maybe 6 hours.
So you pretty much are hackers.
I'm not. I'm actually not qualified to be a hacker, but we do have a team of 6 people that are just fantastic.
Wow, that must be fun.
Oh my gosh.
Just penetrating, getting into systems.
It's the only service that we offer that we can deliver bad news, yet get paid for it and get praised for it.
So like if I log on to Wi-Fi at a local coffee shop or an airport or something, like does that open me up to certain risk?
Less so now than it was before, because a lot of traffic is automatically tunneled through a secure environment from your browser to the public internet. But it's still a risk. I don't use public Wi-Fi at all. I use my cell phone hotspot.
Yeah.
I don't connect to any Wi-Fi that is not sanctioned.
What does that mean, sanctioned?
Pre-approved.
How big is your company? What's the yearly revenue? And what are some of the most interesting clients that you can speak on?
Yeah. So we started as a networking company. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was like, hey, let's start a company and do this. So I did. Started off with 2 partners. One partner bailed out before we even incorporated. Still a good friend of mine. The other partner had some family, and he left a little bit early, 6 months into the company. So I was left alone with a little bit of debt and not a lot of business. So as you grow older, you realize that you don't need a lot of money to start a company. But when you don't know, you think you do need a lot.
Where would you spend the money in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, when you don't have any customers, I wouldn't spend any money. I would grind and still have a job. Borrowing money to start a company is not the wisest thing to do.
No, I'm talking about your specific scenario.
People that you don't know what they're going to do is a wrong way of spending money. When you hire somebody thinking that this is my vision and they're going to help me on the vision, but in reality, you don't even know what the steps are to get to that vision.
Okay.
So that's a big mistake that I've done a few times. Lots of mistakes. I mean, there's probably 90% mistakes, 10% successes in business, at least from my experience. We started as a networking company. I get an opportunity somebody reaches out and says, hey, we have these student housing apartment complexes, and we hired a company called Clear to come and install Wi-Fi networks. This was 2007. This company is like, can you fix this for us? So they pay me to go to Florida and figure out what's wrong with their Wi-Fi. And I do. And I think they paid me like $5,000 to go there. I'm like, sweet. This is my second time in Florida. And I proposed a solution to them. And the way they were a development company that owned these apartment complexes. the way I structured the deal was I provide you the equipment, you pay me a monthly fee. So I do the whole thing, and they paid me a monthly subscription for all of it. We did the first project, they liked it, and then they started giving me a lot of projects like that. And the projects were netting me $100,000, $200,000, pretty healthy amount. What I did with the contract was I would sell it to a bank. I'd have the contract, I'd sell it, the bank would give me the money up front. And then every 5 years, I would renew the equipment and get
a new contract, basically. Like when I think of a bank, I think of, you go get a loan, you get a mortgage, but like to have that type of transaction with a bank, I didn't even know that something like that was possible. How did you find a banker that was willing to do that?
I was in 2004, I was at a conference in Santa Ana, and a guy was talking about hardware as a service, where you're providing hardware to companies and financing companies finance it for you. So you get the funds upfront for the services, for the hardware, and the financing company bills the organization. But the way you do it is you build the organization and pay the finance company. So that's where the idea came from. I didn't know if it's going to work, but it did.
It worked.
It works because you get paid on the project, on the hardware, and then you also get paid interest.
So long as the customer's paying you more in the service fee per month than the cost of the hardware and the implementation, you're in the green. And you're not using any of your own money. You're arbitraging somebody who's financing the project.
What size are we talking about? How much equipment there is to finance?
These projects were above 100,000 each.
So the equipment alone is about 100,000. You go to a finance company, you ask them for money to finance this deal. Then there's a monthly fee that the development company pays you. But honestly, they're not paying you either.
They're paying the bank. To the development company, it looks like it's me. But in reality, the agreement is with the financing company and the development company, with me as the intermediary. Kind of like when you go and lease a car from Tesla, or very similar type of arrangement. You assume you're paying to Tesla, but in reality, there's another financing company involved. So it's the same thing here. The finance company would pay me up front for everything.
So this
But I had
was
to have
one
a
of your
relationship.
biggest customers at the time, and that's what really started the company.
That's what really, yeah.
So in a way, you weren't just providing a networking service, you were providing a full one-stop shop, and you use other people's money in order to finance the entire deal, and you just walked away with a percentage.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I did the work. I'd hire people off of Craigslist, strangers I didn't know. It was a fun journey.
And what did the work entail? Because I feel like back then it's very technical. You couldn't just go and troubleshoot something by looking it up on YouTube or Google. What were you actually doing to get these systems to work?
So we started off with what's called mesh systems, where an access point, you give it power and it talks to other access points like itself and transacts data or passes data traffic through each other, creating a big bubble of Wi-Fi across a property. That bubble, eventually there was not enough bandwidth. We ended up moving to fiber and getting very technical and fancy.
With that, you weren't pulling the wire basically to get these things to talk to each other. You were like, everything was connected. You were just working more like software based on the back end.
No, there was a lot of installation. So think about a apartment building, right? Apartment building, in this case, they were more garden style, where there's apartment buildings, like 16, 17 apartment buildings. We would go to each building and put an access point on the roof. And the access points were big. They were about that big with 2 big antennas. And so there were 4 radios that created this whole thing, sometimes even multiple on each building. You need power, so we would run power to the roof. I would personally do the installations. One day we're doing an installation and my helper, so typically they would provide us a apartment unit, a furnished unit on property while we're doing the project. My helper, like around 4 p.m. comes up to me and he says, "Hey, there's some girls at the pool. I'm going to go hang out at the pool. Can you finish this project up?" I'm like, "Sure." So I go climb on the roof, and it was a 3-story apartment building. And as I'm stepping off of the ladder buckles underneath me, and I go tumbling down, and it was concrete, and a small bush. I don't know where the bush came from. I land in the bush, wind blown out of me. I'm all bloody because I was scraping down the stucco wall. Woman's walking her dog, comes up to me. "Are you okay?" I'm like, And she just keeps walking.
You couldn't even speak.
I couldn't even speak because I just fell 3 floors.
You
Oh
thought you
my
were
God.
dying, and she
I
just.
thought I was dying, yeah.
Oh my.
So I get in the golf cart, drive to the pool area. I'm like, hey, take me to the, he's like, what happened? Because I'm all ripped up, bloody. Take me to the emergency room. Luckily, nothing was busted or broken. Just needed some bandages.
Cosmetics.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Cosmetic damage.
Wow. Was that a turning point for you where you decided you didn't want to climb the 3-story ladders anymore?
I think I did probably 4 or 5 more projects like that. But at that point, I was hiring boom lifts. We were a lot more safe. And Florida was the Wild West at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot less regulation than there was here in Oregon. When we started doing the same thing here in Oregon, regulation was killing us. It was.
What does that mean, the regulations? What were they exactly?
So by the time that we got to larger scale, we were installing fiber at that point. We were building, instead of doing wireless connections between buildings, we were trenching and putting in fiber. We hired companies to do it. We would put in fiber optic cables between buildings and then 2 data centers. At the time, the way that we got bandwidth at the building was T1s, which were 1.5 megabits. So to give you perspective, 1.5% of what we have now. Not even that, half of that. As Facebook and Instagram came online, as YouTube came online, that bandwidth got sucked up. There was not enough bandwidth. So we started bonding, bringing those pipes and building them up together and shifting traffic from one to another just to get faster speeds for the users. Eventually, it wasn't enough. So we started building from the property to a data center. And the idea was, hey, there's a lot of bandwidth at a data center. How can we tap into that? So we ended up working with cities and to build fiber on streets. This was pre-fiber. This was 2008, 2009.
So pretty much you're doing what right now most internet carriers do now. You did that before them.
Yeah.
And
Very expensive.
Trying to go ahead of times with speed and technology. And it's very expensive. And only big companies could afford it.
Yeah.
This is not for retail customers, right?
Well, when you have universities and you have others backing you, it makes it a little bit easier, but still it was a lot of risk, a lot of liability that I was taking on myself.
What is one of those contracts cost?
It depends where. So if you're building in an urban core, you're paying $50 to $100 a foot to put fiber in. And that was at the time, that was 2010, 2011, 2012, that. So $50 to $100 in the urban core. In suburbs, it could drop down to like $3 or $4 a foot. So it really depends. I don't know what the pricing is these days, but at the time, that's what it was.
Was it mostly new construction that you guys were working with? Was it like renovations and remodels? What types of jobs were you guys doing?
So it was existing buildings that we were retrofitting with this new technology.
My background is engineering, and specifically in the construction industry, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. I did the electrical drawings that you handed to an electrical contractor to do. And what I would do is we would have the electrical drawings, we just copy and paste to the technology drawings and just show the data drops. And I would do some of the basic technology design. And I know a little bit about the industry. For you, it seems like you were doing that right when fiber was becoming a thing. And you were just inventing and creating the processes as you were going through the jobs, basically.
Sometimes I'm a little bit embarrassed at the things that I had to do. One of these jobs, to bounce off of what you just said, a university hires us to put in high-speed internet at an apartment complex where a lot of students live. We couldn't build fiber in that area. It was cost prohibitive. There was some environmental thing out in Corvallis, environmental thing that we couldn't overcome. So we're like, okay, and we signed the contract with the customer already to do it.
That said you were going to do it.
We said we're going to do it by September 1st. And this is June. So we have 3 or 4 months to build it out. We're busting our head trying to figure out how are we going to get fiber, and we can't. But what we did discover was there were old phone lines buried between buildings. So we thought about how do we leverage the old phone lines with high-speed internet, some new technology like a faster DSL or something. I call every company, everybody I know. I'm like, hey, I need a DSL aggregator. I didn't even know what it was. All I knew is that I could get data from point A to point B over this technology that is mystical. There's not a lot of data on that. And nobody would talk to me. every vendor is like, nope, we only sell to telcos. We only sell to telecom companies. And nobody would talk to me. I would talk to network engineers, and they say, Mark, you're an idiot. You can't do it. So I find a guy in Latvia on eBay that's selling one of these systems. And I think it was like July. He ships me one of the systems. I get it mid-August. I had like 2 weeks to install this.
Oh, wow. That's a risk.
So it was 150 apartments that we had to hand wire the 2 pairs of telephone wire to make it work. The weekend before September 1st or 2nd, whatever it was, I go to Craigslist and I'm like, I need 10 people to do this. And we met up at Corvallis Chamber of Commerce. I rented the conference room there, and I interviewed probably 20 or 30 people in one day and just hired a bunch of random people to go and punch down those cables.
Oh my gosh. So it wasn't like Cat5 cable. You're using the telecom cables, but you were you basically had, equipment at the starting point, basically at the beginning and end of the telecom wires in order to make it high speed.
Yeah.
Well, how do you make it high speed? It's not even.
I mean, it's just copper.
You're modulating the signal. You're essentially hacking the old technology using a new layer to modulate the way the signal, the way that the signal gets transferred from point A to point B.
And how is it comparable to?
We were doing about 100.
Okay.
So
okay.
And
90
was that
90 to 100.
Was that within the spec that you agreed?
It was supposed to be 30 megabits.
It seems like the client probably didn't understand what kind of system you were installing. They just said, make it happen.
It worked. We shut down that specific old system that I bought on eBay that was already 10 years old. We shut down that system in 2021.
Oh, so you retain them as a client?
Yeah. They're paying us monthly.
Oh, that makes sense. Because I was thinking like, okay, did you just do this job and then you just like left?
Oh, no.
And they were stuck with this.
We shut it down because we're like, we need to upgrade the system. We're no longer in the business. And the customer was not happy. They're like, we like this service. So they went to Comcast directly. By that time, there was a lot more capabilities in Corvallis.
Yeah.
So
the environmental hurdles were probably reduced by that point. So Comcast could come and do things in a more legitimate way without having to jerry-rig the whole thing together.
it was still fiber. Fiber came to the property, and then we distributed that fiber across the units. It was still like, we didn't change the delivery, the last mile delivery method was changed because we couldn't dig. The only way was for us to trench the whole property, and the owner didn't want to.
So up until this point, you're doing networking, but now you do cybersecurity. How did that gap get bridged?
Yeah. So as I'm working with all these students, and man, students are smart. They're hacking stuff. So we're getting notices from, it's a DMCA, the copyright protection.
Yeah.
We're getting notices, and we're like, how do we stop? How do we combat students from pirating things?
Because everybody's doing like the LimeWire thing, downloading the movies and the music. Who's actually responsible, like, to police that? Like, why would the university care that the DCMA is, talking to them?
Well, you could lose your license to operate a network. So when you're selling access to public transit, you need a license. There's different kinds of permissions, and plus you're also, if you don't do it, they go to the next provider upstream. So if you don't enforce it, they could go to whoever's providing you that transit connection to the public internet.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, we had to combat it because otherwise we lose our circuits.
Interesting. So it was your problem to solve, and you basically had to figure out, how do I stop students from pirating media?
Pirating media, manipulating their accounts. There's a lot of security that I learned during that time. And also during that time, I was dabbling in managed services where I had a customer. I like to do a lot of things at once. I had a customer that was a manufacturing company in Portland, and we managed their whole network, their whole security environment. And this was 2010-ish. Accounting gets an email with an invoice that looked legitimate. Accounting opens the email. The next morning, nobody can work. Everything's encrypted.
Mm.
So that's where security really got my attention. That, the students, the combination, it was like the perfect storm for me to change my direction from networking to networking was very capital intensive. Like that project in Corvallis that I was just talking about, I think that cost us about $200,000 to deploy, and it was generating us about $90,000 a year. So it took a few years to make back the money.
Basically 3 years to
Yeah.
even
Wow.
break even.
But they were a customer for 10 years. So
it penciled out in
Yeah.
the end. But as you were doing the networking, one of your existing customers came to you and they said, hey, we have this issue, DCMA, help us fix it. And that is what really started to open your eyes to the potential of switching or adding cybersecurity as another service offering for your company.
it was a yes, it was a combination. A customer gets compromised with ransomware. Another one is DCMA and students manipulating their systems.
And when you think about providing cybersecurity as a service and charging for it, if you think about 1 day of downtime and think about the loss of revenue to a company, do you use that in the justification for pricing for your services?
We don't. We could, but we don't. We try to talk to what is keeping. One of my number one questions is what keeps you up at night? And then we really agitate that question during the sales process. And it's more to understand why is the customer concerned and how do we solve that problem? Once we solve that one problem, we could solve so many other problems. Because at the end of the day, the only reason we buy something is to address a specific problem. Water, for me, is I have an immediate need, my mouth is dry, but in reality, it solves so many more problems. Same thing with our sales process. How do we solve the immediate problem and then expand that?
Interesting. And so with cybersecurity, do you ever have situations where you know the customer needs something, they're extremely vulnerable, but they just don't care and they're not aware that it's an issue? Like how often do you brush up against that?
Small businesses, very often. Businesses sub 200 million in revenue, like that borderline smallish, medium-ish business. They tend to have an issue where why are we paying for security when we have cyber insurance?
What is cyber insurance?
Cyber insurance is when you pay part of your general liability, you have a cybersecurity insurance policy that if you get compromised, the cybersecurity insurance policy will pay out all of the liabilities.
Mm.
But that is not truly accurate. They send you a questionnaire every year saying, are you following these set of rules that we set? If you are, and you say you are, when you do get compromised, they go back and they verify, did you actually follow them? And if you didn't, they're not going to pay out.
How often do you see policies not get paid out?
I haven't seen, not with our clients, I haven't seen anyone not get paid out because we have a separate compliance team that makes sure that we comply with.
If the company didn't hire someone like you, a cybersecurity company, and they just rely on that insurance.
Yeah, I mean, like for you, they're hiring you to take care of their cybersecurity. So obviously all the boxes are going to be checked, every T is crossed, every I is dotted. But if you have a small company, 10, 20 employees, they get cybersecurity insurance and they're going through the paperwork. The yearly renewal comes, they just check yes on all the boxes, but really they didn't have second factor authentication or they weren't cycling passwords or they didn't check some kind of box. I imagine, there's probably, certain situations where they had insurance and there's no claim being paid out.
That happens very often. So I hear stories that I haven't interacted with any company that hasn't been paid out, but I've heard stories from others that, insurance didn't pay out because we were missing MFA on our Adobe account, which we don't care about Adobe, but happens to just break the contract.
Reality is, even if you follow the strict rules, you still can be compromised.
Yes.
Okay, how do you protect yourself in this world?
That's a $1 million and a very deep philosophical question. How do we protect ourselves when we go outside and cross the street? There's no guarantee that we're not going to get hit by a bus. We do everything we can to not get hit by a bus, but a bus can show up because we were staring at our phone. And where did the bus come from? A lot of the security incidents today happen because of people. I think I don't remember what the statistic is, but I think it was like 80 or 90% of security incidents happen by people. Internal threats, like we discussed earlier, somebody's disgruntled and they publish all of that data on Reddit or wherever they publish it, dark web, or just malpractice. You have a network engineer that's busy and the CEO calls them and says, hey, I need this application working. So they just open up a port on the firewall that they forget to close later. And that's what gets exploited.
Just being sloppy almost.
Yeah. Especially today with
Like human error.
human error. But today I think it's a bigger problem because of AI slop. Like you said, sloppy. And AI is causing, I think, is going to cause a lot more vulnerabilities.
Why?
Because we could develop software without knowing what we are developing. I could go to Replit, connect my data, and have an app out in 2 hours, 30 minutes.
So you're saying that all these people who are vibe coding the software, thinking they're so smart and all these barriers to entry of development are so low now, they're dealing with the Frankenstein that has no security whatsoever.
I'm a culprit of that too, because I like to vibe code often. Like it's my fun pastime. Instead of working, I'll vibe code.
Interesting.
It's very addictive.
Well, speaking of AI and ChatGPT, a lot of people are giving away a lot of information. So asking ChatGPT about their personal situation, their situation with legal situation, is that safe?
I wouldn't say it's safe. We have to value what's important. So security, we could be 100% secure. We could lock ourselves in a box and have that box be carried to the bathroom, we go use the bathroom, we come back in the box, and we're always locked in a box. No external factors can come in. No COVID, no fly, no nothing, right? But what is the quality of life? The quality of life is garbage. You're sitting in a box. Same thing with business. There's a concept called zero trust. And the idea is you don't trust anything unless it's completely sanctioned right off the bat, or it's sanctioned by somebody else and vetted. Yes, you could create zero trust across organizations and they will be 100% secure. But what is the quality of life and what is the production value of that customer or that company? Are they going to be able to innovate? If you lock people down, they can't innovate.
There's got to be like a game theory case study on this, where there's got to be some sort of optimal security to freedom balance. Because if you're too far on one edge of the spectrum, then everything kind of falls apart.
You can't be too secure. It's actually, philosophically, it's wrong to be secure. Because if you're secure, you're not vulnerable. And when you're not vulnerable, you're not building relationships.
And that applies to networks as it does relationships.
100%.
Well, it applies to everything all your life. People that are afraid to fly because the plane can crash, what's the point? And you can't migrate from one location. You can go to Europe, you can go to Mexico. There's people like that.
Yeah.
And what's the point of living if you're just afraid to drive a car because you might end up in a crash? Same thing with security. Too safe is not an option.
My wife was telling a story how her parents didn't even finish building their house in Ukraine before they migrated to the US. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, that is like, would I do that today? Would I leave everything I've built in search of a better place, not even knowing, never being there? Would I ever? Probably not. The amount of courage our parents and grandparents took to move here, that's a vulnerability. That means that you don't take yourself seriously. And you're like, I trust God. I trust that there's a better place on earth. And same in business. If we secure it, then we can't trust that there's a better place. We can't trust that our employees can do a better job. And that's a problem. That's a miserable life. I'd hate to have my job if I couldn't trust my employees.
About 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or probably earlier than that, you started building a startup. Can we talk about that? The truth, the ugly truth about how complicated it is to get into startups funding it, raising money, finding talent, all that.
Yeah, well, software is not new to me. I've been spending way too much money on startups. So since I couldn't afford, I still figured out ways to spend money on startups. So the one that you're thinking about, ITOS, it's still dormant. I still want to build something on top of it. I think there's a lot of opportunity in our industry to make things more modern. So if you look at the managed services industry, it in of itself is like a dinosaur from 1990s. And I'm sorry to my colleagues and everybody else who believes in the industry. I believe in the industry, but I believe that there has not been any innovation in the space. We're grasping to that last, opportunity. If you look at the tools that are available for industry-specific tools, they are absolute garbage. Like,
For someone who doesn't understand what's managed services in cybersecurity, just in a few words.
yeah. So managed services is when you hire somebody else, a consultant or a company, to come in and help operate whatever you're doing. In IT, let's say you need to onboard an employee, offboard an employee, that specific task, which is a bridge between HR and operations. IT steps in the middle and creates accounts. Those things are managed services. When you hire somebody else, like Rippling, or I think JustWorks now does that as well, HR platforms. So those are managed services when you offload certain tasks to someone else. Or you could do a full managed service where they also lead you and say, this is what you need, and really help you operate the business.
So start with an email account, then you need a Slack, you need this account, you need access to this software.
Yes.
Okay.
So CPAs, if to anyone that doesn't know what IT and security is, CPAs are managed services. So CPAs, bookkeepers, you outsource what the tasks that you need done for your business, and a third party does that for you.
Makes sense. So you've been building a software.
So ITOS, we started ITOS with the idea that we need to fix the onboarding process for customers, the onboarding of an employee and the offboarding of the employee. Because as we're doing pen tests and as we're going through these security questionnaires for customers, what we discover is the biggest threat is old accounts. You fire an employee, but you never close their accounts.
Yeah.
The manager's like, you're gone, you're no longer with the company, never lets anyone know that their accounts need to be closed. Their email, their Slack, and the password never gets rotated. That's a threat that user can come back. We've had many instances where we were able to log into old accounts just because nobody shut down the account. I hired an employee, a guy once to come work with me, and 5 years later, he was just goofing around, logs into an old employer's account, router, and he shows me, he's like, hey, I'm still like, I haven't worked with this employer for 5 or 6 years. He's like, I still have access. Why? Why do businesses not manage user accounts or take them seriously? We take people's keys away, or do we? So this ITOS platform is supposed to solve that problem. When you look at the chain of who is the most responsible in a business, HR and accounting is the most responsible. They're the ones that make sure that payroll compliance is done. They're the ones that make sure that old employees aren't paid. So why are we not tying that account or that HR function to IT? So if HR is not paying this person, why should this person have access? So that's what we were trying to solve with a combination of AI. After about $500,000, we decided to pull the plug on it.
It seems like a very technically difficult thing to do because you don't know, like if you're onboarding somebody for that service, which as you're explaining the service, I'm like, that is brilliant. I would have paid so much money for that in a number of different companies I've been associated with. But there's thousands and thousands of softwares you need to be able to integrate with to be able to actually accomplish that. And I feel like that's the hardest issue to solve.
It is a very hard issue because there's so much. Okta is attempting to do it. Microsoft Entra ID is trying to do it, to level the playing field for identity. And then you have companies like HubSpot, where if you want that capability where you are integrated with a centralized identity, you have to pay an arm and a leg. which to me, I don't think it's fair. I think companies should give that away as a security feature that's critical, but they don't. Yeah, a lot of companies, they charge significantly extra. So you could have an account on HubSpot for what, $800 a month? But in order to get the enterprise secure single sign-on, you have to pay, what is it, $1,300? I don't think that's fair. So
now, how does it work if, say, a business centralizes around Gmail, right, the Google Suite, and that becomes their work email? And like for me, most of the softwares I use, I just do the sign in with Google, and I've never even set passwords on most of these softwares. Is it true, or is the way it works is if I go in and like I set my own login, my own email, my own password, but then my Gmail gets changed, somebody still has to go in as the admin on whatever software I'm using and change and remove that password because I still have access technically.
So it depends how. So there's federated access where the application asks, hey, is this user exist? Or an account is created on the platform, for instance, like Jira. You have to create a separate account. And then you could say, if this account exists here, then you could use Google's authenticator to authenticate to it. But the account actually exists in the other platform so that there's no centralized bucket. If I disable it here, it disables it there. That's where that some applications do, some don't. And single sign-on, like Okta, is supposed to solve that problem.
Let's go back to the $500,000 spent and how many years you've been building.
We were building it for 3 years.
Okay, what's the issue? Why you didn't deliver the product? Is it ran out of money, team? What's going on?
So ran out of money is one thing. So exceeded my budget, set myself a limit. It was 300,000, and then I'm like, oh, let's do 4, let's do 5. But severely went over budget on it. That's one thing. The second thing is I think we didn't understand the job that we're trying to solve, the job to be done, the problem that the customers really, I think that's where we were trying to solve all of the problems at once instead of focusing on just one problem. When you think of identity and onboarding and offboarding, there's 500 million things that need to be solved. Which one of those things are we going to solve?
So you're talking about the feature set. You've been building too many features.
Way too many, yeah.
So you would, if you go back to 3 years from now, 3 years ago, you would basically say, okay, $500,000, well, 300 to 500,000 is my budget, and I need to simplify a product. Maybe there's an end goal of a larger software suite, but let's start with something one. Because a lot of people want to solve a lot of problems within a specific industry, and they don't realize it's actually we need to focus on one thing and focus one and do it well.
Yeah. If I was to go back and pick a problem out of all of the problems that we were trying to solve, I think I would start with, I don't know, solve the problem for 4 or 5 different integrations instead of 80 to 100. So on average, a company has 80 to 120 different applications that they use on a daily basis. We were trying to solve the problem for all of them. We wanted to be the central. We were bleeding into the identity side, even though we did not want to deal with identity.
You almost have to become an identity-based company to service 120 integrations. Whereas 90% of the risk that the companies are exposed to was within 5 to 10 integrations.
What are the key components that we need to lock down?
Any other lessons learned in the past 3 years?
Hiring, instead of hiring juniors, hiring more senior. And by the way, I had fantastic juniors. Like I'm still in contact with all of them, still friends with them. One was at my office yesterday. But when you put a responsibility of something that is ambiguous on someone that has no idea how to approach that problem, how to approach even asking the right questions about the problem, you're doing a disservice to them as a leader. I think as a leader, you need to find the right person that can solve the problem. Also a challenging thing in of itself. Distilling what can the individual contribute that they don't think they can contribute yet, but you could see that they can.
When you set that budget of 300,000, Where did that come from? Now you realize probably the cost of building software is much, much higher, or is it the journey that will take to a finished quality product is much, much longer than you thought it's going to be?
For me, it was R&D. We have an R&D budget that we use for figuring out what we can do, how can we optimize, and how can we put ourselves out of business. So the question I pose to my team is, what can we do to put us out of business? If we think about what will come across, come into the market in the next 5 or 10 years, what will kill us? Why can't we do that today? So always asking that question. And this was part of the R&D budget. So for me, I was building it selfishly for our company as a separate standalone that we could spin off and sell to competitors. We also ran into a problem. Competitors didn't want to talk to us. It became this, oh, you guys are a competitor building a platform. Why would we trust you? Turned into an issue.
So you're saying there's no market fit potentially? Or it's because you are in cybersecurity and you're building. It's not a third party. They actually knew that it's Edgfi
Yes.
building the software.
They knew that the founder of Edgfi is also building this, and it became a conflict of interest.
I see.
So, not with everyone, but the ones that are, very careful with who they interact with, those are the ones that had a problem with that.
About 3-4 years ago, we met and you said, I'm going to be moving to Spain. Sounded like you were moving for
Forever.
forever. What's the situation there, and how was your experience actually living abroad with family, with kids? How did your wife react to the news?
Well, when you have a good wife, everything happens together. It was a joint decision for us. We were, I don't remember where, traveling, and as we're walking through a garden, I'm telling my wife, how amazing would it be to experience this moment in time with the children? And then we kind of talked about it. That was, I think, September or October of 23. And we talked about it. Oh, how fun would it be to sell everything we have and move abroad, and we dreamt of this like nomad, homeless lifestyle.
Or you just rent, you don't actually own your rent.
So we talked about that. And in December of 23, I'm sitting with my leadership team and I'm like, hey, what if I was to disappear for a year? Like, what if I was to go somewhere, and can you guys operate the company on your own? And everyone's like, yeah, you've put in 20 years into this company. You should take a break. I only started taking real vacations maybe 4 years ago. Before, I always had my phone, my laptop.
What's a real vacation?
That's when you go on vacation and your phone and laptop are nowhere to be seen. I don't even bring my computer with me on vacation. I leave my phone in the safe. The only reason I take my phone around right now is for the camera. We talked about this, and I come back to my wife. I'm like, hey, what if we actually do this? What if we sell the cars, get rid of the house, and just move? Just, worst case, I could run the company remotely. Worst case, I could always fly back. So we did, and we started planning, rented our house out. I put my cars out to a consignment lot, like sell them for me while I'm gone. So we moved to Spain.
What part of Spain?
Barcelona. Had no idea what we're doing. I just showed up.
No relatives, no friends there.
No friends, no relatives.
Did you ever go to Spain or Barcelona?
Never been to Barcelona.
Wow. So you moved your entire family to Barcelona without ever going.
Without ever going.
That's crazy.
It was fun. I did set up, so we had a customer who had an IT team in Barcelona, and I decided I want to hire a team in Barcelona. So I did hire somebody in Barcelona while I was there. So it was kind of business. I never waste time. So if I have I believe in work-life integration where you do life and work at the same time. So you could be friends, you could go on vacation, but still do business. So I met this person. I've interviewed him prior to going, but I've also met him in person, and we started working together. So we land in Barcelona, and we come into the Airbnb, and it's beautiful, like fantastic, small comparatively, probably the size of this room, but it was beautiful. We settle in the next day. We go down to the cafe in the ground floor of the apartment complex. And I went back to the apartment to grab something and come back, and my wife has terror on her face. Like, she's scared. And she's like, hey, those people, they live here and they said this is a very dangerous neighborhood. Like, why are you guys here? Why are you Americans here in this dangerous neighborhood? So the lady tells my wife, Christina, saying, when you exit this restaurant, do not go left, because if you go left, you're going to be in trouble, like physical harm. Only go right and straight into your apartment, and don't explore this neighborhood. So we're like, okay, that's not a good feeling.
That's second day. You just arrived.
Yeah, we're still jet lagged. So we're scared, terrified. We have a lease on this thing for the next 4 weeks. Can't go anywhere. We did consider, let's move to an apartment or a hotel, abandon this place and figure out. But we're like, no, we're going to stick it out. Then we go to a Barcelona soccer game. And as we're walking back, we have to walk through that whole neighborhood.
The neighborhood that they told you not to go through.
So we're scared, trying to get a cab. There's no cabs, no Ubers.
And you have children with you?
I have 3 children.
3 children. What are their ages?
A 2-year-old, a 13, and an 11-year-old.
Wow.
So we finally find a cab. The cab does not want to take us to our apartment.
Why?
Because he's like, I'm not going to that neighborhood. He drops us off at like 2 blocks away. Again, very sketchy. So we're even more terrified now than we were. Later, another cab drops us off and says, hey, you guys are in a really bad neighborhood. So long story short, the guy that I'm hiring also says, why are you in this neighborhood? This is a bad neighborhood. We stick around, and then we build up the courage to go deeper into the neighborhood. And the neighborhood is not really Spanish. It was mostly Muslim,
Mm-hmm. Immigrant, basically.
Immigrant.
Yeah.
And as we got to know those people, they're actually really good people. And the neighborhood's not dangerous. What we've come to a conclusion is that it was more local racism than danger. My wife was able to go to the laundromat, which is about a 12-minute walk into the heart of the neighborhood, alone at 10 p.m. And it was completely safe. My kids were towards the end of our time there. It got a lot better and it felt good. And the people were actually nice. Their faces weren't nice because it's a cultural thing. Like the Slavs, they don't look very friendly at first. Like, we go into this meat shop and we're buying chicken, and the guy turns around, grabs a candy bar from the back, hands it to my son, and just his motion and his face was like anger. But in reality, he was trying to be nice to my kid. The cultural differences or perceptions, like that prejudice, causes people to have discomfort.
But overall, your experience, you lived abroad for a year.
9 months.
9 months.
We came back early.
Okay. What was the overall experience? Would you recommend something like that to anybody?
100%. I think everybody should abandon the status quo of what life should be, which is work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep. And we're looking forward to the weekend. That is, I think that's wrong from a humanities perspective. I think we should have the ability to leave. It doesn't cost that much to do it. And yes, people, like my friends are like, but Mark, you have a business, you could work remotely, you have income coming in. Yes, that's true. But in reality, we actually were spending a lot less in Europe than we were here. We do here. So the cost of food, the cost of groceries, even though we were spending a lot on Airbnbs, we're actually spending less there. To give you an example, you go to a restaurant here with kids, you're spending $200 to $250 to go to a decent restaurant, right? In Paris, our budget was $150 a day.
Paris or Barcelona?
Paris. Paris is a lot more expensive than Barcelona.
Okay.
I'd say Paris is about, I wouldn't say double, but close to double Barcelona. In Barcelona, you could eat for $60 to $80 with a family. In Paris, you're spending, that's 70 to 90.
Is it just the cost of living, or is it the strength of the US dollar?
For me, it was all in euros. So
I see.
maybe a little more because of the US dollar. The cost of living in Europe is generally a lot less expensive. When you go to touristy areas, very expensive. When you go to a nice high-end restaurant by the Eiffel Tower, yes, you're spending $500, $600. And they're asking for tips. Whereas in Europe, tips are considered like you don't tip people. It's wrong to tip people. People take pride in what they're doing. But in touristy areas, it's common.
So speaking about going against the status quo, one of the interesting things that I know about you, Mark, is that you went, I think it was 3 or 4 months, basically without a phone. You disconnected from the internet, and you basically ran an IT/cybersecurity company. Tell us about that experience.
I've attempted to do it for a year. My wife wouldn't let me. But what I would do is leave my phone in the car. So I got off social media. I just recently downloaded Instagram again. And the idea is to clear my mind. The idea is, how can I have more contemplative time to think about where am I headed? What have I done? We often don't have enough time to think about where we're going. And then we get into these slumps where we question the purpose of life.
Why I ended up here? Where did I mess up? But the reality is, it's a question that should be bothering us weekly, monthly basis. But because of this rush in life, you're right. We're not thinking about it.
Distractions. We're distracted by email. We're distracted by social media. We're distracted by social activities. We're distracted about, the guy posting on LinkedIn how he started a company and became a success overnight.
And then sports, just random videos, reels, and it's on and on and on and on.
Algorithm is designed to keep us occupied. And that's actually, biblically, the devil wants us to be constantly occupied so we don't have time to think about the greater good. I've attempted for a couple of months to do that, 3 or 4 months, and I want to go back to that. And I can. I mean, my wife says I'm an a-hole for not responding to text messages because my phone is always on silent. Like, I never, if it's important, somebody will get a hold of me. What gets me the most is text messages with groups of 20 or 30 people. By the time you get to what's relevant to you, there's no relevance. I love Telegram. I think it's a great platform, but there's so many groups that you get invited to. So I think contemplative time is important. Setting aside time dedicated to email, dedicated to responding to text messages, dedicated to news. I think news is not a good place for us as humans, especially as ones that want to build a better society. If we are going to focus on the news and all the negative, how are you going to contribute to society if you're only consuming negative? What goes in is what comes out.
The news channel already figured it out, that the negative, what sticks, what really, gets people to click, gets people to read, and the controversial stuff, the bad stuff. There's so many good things happening in the world, in US, but nobody knows about them because they know about assassinations, killings, protests, violence. It's just so unfortunate, and I'm in with you on the news side. I just remember when COVID in 2020 started, I remember how everyone was stuck to their TVs and watching, and I thought it's the end of the world. When it started in Europe, and I told my wife that people are so much more unhealthier in the US. When it comes to US, it's gonna be terrible. And I started living in fear until about 2-3 weeks later, I realized actually it's not that bad.
I want to ask you a question, Mark, something we ask every guest. I want to know for you, Mark, if you could speak to your son when they turn 18, okay, and they're ready to start their first business, whatever that business may be. So let's keep it broad. What advice would you give to your son?
Yeah, it's a good question. It doesn't matter what problem you solve. It's the deep understanding of the problem you're solving. We oftentimes, I'm a culprit of this. You start a business based on your own preconceived understanding of the problem, without actually talking to the customer. So you come into the customer and you're talking about solutions instead of understanding what the problem is for the customer. Before even incorporating or spending $1 on a business, talk to 10 people, figure out what problem are you going to solve. That's going to crystallize your mission, crystallize your purpose in the business. Because if you don't have a mission or purpose, that business, you'll spend $10,000, $15,000 incorporating and doing the first marketing campaign, and you're going to lose passion. And if you don't have that stamina to keep going when you hit that, sloth or whatever you call it, where you don't have any business, you don't have any money, you still have to keep going. But a lot of people fail after the first year. And that's because the foundation wasn't rooted in solving a problem. The foundation was rooted in making money. Money follows solutions. So if you're able to truly solve someone's pain point, money will follow. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, you create value, you get rewarded.
That's the advice you would give. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.